18th.
In this room, 5:30 PM.
Yes.
And thank you for your feedback. All right, so now, 6 o'clock. I'm gonna call the regular select board meeting to order. First item is set adjusted
Can you wait
agenda.
just 1 second because
Oh,
I
sorry.
have to end this and I have to start the next meeting.
Oh,
There's 2 different viewing sessions.
We would like to take that old stove out of the section house and bring it into the depot.
Okay.
Is that something you guys can help us with?
Just say no.
Yeah, ask him on
If we go
camera.
get it.
How many times have you moved it already?
3.
Yes. No, just twice, right?
Just twice.
Twice.
Once from Burlington and once from
Yeah.
the
A
depot.
third time's a charm.
Yeah. It turns out sitting out there, I should have thought of this, it's wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
There's water going under that building in the spring.
Thanks, Michael.
There's nothing for it. So we bring it inside.
Only 40 bucks.
I know.
And be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just come over and get us.
Just come over and get you.
All right.
You're always over there.
Well, this time of year.
So maybe next Tuesday afternoon?
Sure.
Thank you. Alberta,
Yes.
who sets the fees for the dog licenses? Is that the state or is that us?
So, it's kind of complicated because it used to be that it was just us.
We can talk
Well,
about
it
it.
used to be that it was us and nothing.
We can add it.
We do that. Now it's
It'll be
us, that's
handled.
all.
Sounds
I
like a
agree.
He's got it all under
$4
control.
and $5 goes to the state for dog licenses. It goes to the state for, it's 4 and 8, 4 and 8. Yeah.
So now the state has increased what they get from us, so we're actually going in the other direction as far as.
Tentacles are everywhere.
Yes, very much so.
So we set the rate
We set the rate.
and they take a percentage?
Yes.
A percentage or a flat rate? They take a percentage or a flat rate?
Well, flat rate, but it ends up being, I think they take $1 for the raises program and then.
So,
So they.
how's our Zoom
We should be
proceeding?
all set.
We're good to go?
Yeah, I just had to end that and start the next one.
Okay, so I already called the select board meeting to order. We just had to do a little technical dance to get onto the correct Zoom. So any set adjust agenda, does anybody have anything to add, subtract, change?
We are requesting to switch items 1 and 2, the order of them, please.
Okay. Works for me. Anything else? Could we have a motion to change switch items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, here we go. First is communication from the audience, and we have an audience tonight. Is anybody here to communicate anything that's not something we're gonna cover later in the agenda?
But you can start off. You're on the agenda.
You're on the agenda. Yeah, you're item number 1, so.
Yeah, we're on there.
Okay. All right, so moving right along then. Next is, we've got minutes to approve from our last regular meeting, which was October 21. Also a special meeting of October 21.
It was the site visit to Bailey Haven.
Oh, right. And the public hearing, no, that was the, oh yeah, and we did a public hearing too.
Big day.
All October 21. All right.
Can we motion to approve them all at the same time,
As written.
as written?
Sherry moves we approve them all.
Second?
Everybody good with that? Anybody comments? You're abstaining? Any comments? I thought minutes were good.
Good, yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And 1 abstention from Michael?
Yes.
Got that? All right. Casey, I'm impressed at your ability to do notes, do the Zoom, listen to us. That's all good. All right. Next is the town manager's report given by David Upson.
Okay, quickly here so we can hear the public. Received the completed survey from the Little River Survey for their work on the pedestrian bridge. We met with the State of Vermont Historic Preservation Officer to discuss the proposed right-of-way to be allowed by the town and a private landowner to Josh Allen's house. That went well.
Oh, good.
The municipal planning grant was submitted for the downtown consulting and planning for future economic development in Hardwick. I want to say a special thanks to the Galaxy Bookshop, Birdsong, Front Seat, and the Northeast Kingdom Chamber of Commerce for their letters of support. Last but not least, I attended a Zoom meeting from Healthy Lamoille Valley for an informational presentation on the potential impacts of Act 164, which is the retail cannabis. Impacts that it might have on the community. It will be up to the community to decide at town meeting whether or not we want this for our town. I recommend to the board at least a task force covering the effects that this would have on schools, the youth, medical services, police services, land use planning, zoning, or several community forums inviting experts on these topics to educate the townspeople so they make an informed decision at town meeting. I put in a presentation, PowerPoint presentation in the folder that people can access. It's a pretty good presentation. It hits on all the things. So this
And
is...
when I put up the minutes on our website, I will include that presentation in the attachments.
So you can access the presentation on our website under tonight's meeting. And then this is kind of a segue into item 4 for you guys.
Opie, can I just ask, with the pedestrian bridge survey, where we're at in that process now?
We, that was sent to the architect that we are looking to hire once we get feedback from rural development on the contracts. I emailed them today. Nothing but crickets from the feds.
Surprising.
Were there any surprises in that survey, or was it more or less what you expected?
It was basically a, topographic survey of the area. Nothing crazy.
No. Okay.
No.
No. Good. Excellent. And good that the municipal planning grant was submitted. Thank you.
Yes.
More questions? No. That was short and sweet. Next, road foreman report given by Tom Padden. What?
Not if we start asking you questions.
Yeah, wait, questions.
What do you got? We'll answer those first.
Are the plows on the trucks?
Sort of. We got one plow frame on, that's it. No, take that back, 2. Todd's truck, we're having a little problem with his. We got a noise vibration in it. We think we figured it out. We think we need a new center bearing for it, so the guys are going after parts for that truck tomorrow. My truck is still down, still waiting for parts. Spencer's truck, that should be going out to paint this week, and hopefully by the end of next week or the beginning of the other one, we should have that one back. Tool cat, we should have that probably hopefully by next week. Fingers crossed. We did some brush cutting around the village and stuff, but of course last week there was kind of crappy, so we got a few days in. Then of course we had to bring it back because somebody else was running it. So we did that. We've been trying to keep up on the roads with the potholes and stuff. We've been out spot grading, hauling a little bit of gravel. The other thing, the guys have been bringing back material back to shop for springtime. We've been hauling back some ditch stone just to have, just in case, but they've been hauling back some stay mat. So now we got a pile of stay mat, some gravel at the garage and stuff, so.
Good.
And a good pile of smaller stone there for mud season, so we should be all set up and running for that. Pretty much about it. Did a water connection. We were having problems up the reservoir, you might have noticed.
I wondered.
A little air.
I wondered what was happening.
Yeah, we had a problem with that all weekend there, so the float up there wasn't quite working right. We did finally get a new one that's installed, so hopefully you won't lose water again. I think that's about it.
Wow, that was pretty short.
Yeah.
Questions for Tom?
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, roads are looking good, I'd say.
they're packing good right
Yeah.
now. So we're just out kind of scuffing and keeping up with potholes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, of course, this morning we couldn't get outside grading until about 10, but,
Little frost.
yeah.
Or froze.
A little froze.
Little froze.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next up, Hardwick Police Department report given by Erin Coffram.
Okay, well, we had for October, calls, we had 232 calls for the month of October, which is interesting enough. It's similar to the same amount of calls when we had Greensboro. Greensboro, we would run about 250 calls, having Hardwick and Greensboro a month.
Are those
on
actual
average.
calls for service?
Yeah, well, it includes everything that we
Oh.
do, so, you know, any type of traffic enforce, everything that we do. And so, you know, we're still running a fair high amount of calls, even just for Hardwick. We did that, we had, plaguing animal problem, that, has been rectified. Cows that were continuously in the road on 15 at nighttime and.
Oh, at night?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, but that problem has been rectified, so we're all set with that. So that was done. We have been involved in the homicide in Greensboro. We were back up that night, which led to court time as well, so we have some officers that are gonna be tied up in some court time with that as well. State police, as you know, did take the investigation over and requested if they could use our facility, so they did that for about 3 days through that investigation. We've obviously worked with them before and they were comfortable, you know, with the facility and it worked out great, and so we assisted them, you know, however we could with that investigation as well.
That's good.
So I won't go into any details of that, obviously it's a, you know, pending case, but we were involved with it and have been doing what we can to help there, so.
Good.
Halloween, terrible weather, but it was good to get back out there and see the kids, and I don't know numbers, but somebody said they guessed about 400 kids. I don't know what anybody else, you know, saw in the village, but I had somebody say they did cowtails, so they had 400 cowtails and one to each kid, and so they about 400 people, but it seemed much quieter this year to me, you know, but the weather was absolutely horrible, so that could have affected that in some way as well. But it was good to get back out there again and interact with a lot of the kids. They actually look for us, you know, every year for that, so we've built some bonds there that is nice to have. So Halloween was good. Update on the radar sign. We had an issue with one of them, with the battery. It was a bad battery. They're rechargeable batteries. So Opie and I and Casey worked on those. So we ordered new batteries for that. The unfortunate part with the batteries is they changed the battery design, so we had to actually order the whole back in order to get, but considering the signs were paid for by grant funds, it's still a pretty good deal, and we've had one up anyways, if anybody has seen it in North Main.
More to come.
Well, then there's more to come, so now that one's, you know, that battery's come in, and so they're charging, and then we'll be putting them back up again, different areas. So, you know, we'd like to hear if people are, you know, experiencing some speed issues or feel that they are. You know, we're putting them out where we think is good areas, but if there's an area we haven't hit, we're more than happy to, you know, get that information, either call me or OB, and we'll get them out there. And we try to rotate them. They last about 2 weeks, as I think I've said before a charge is necessary, and then, you know, we have to bring them back in, charge them, and generally we try to run about 2 weeks in a spot with those radar signs.
I like them.
I think they're pretty effective. I really
Absolutely.
do. So,
Erin,
it's
can
good.
I ask, sorry, have they gone to East Hardwick at all, or mainly just Hardwick for now?
They've just been Hardwick for now, because we just had that one sign.
Yeah.
So yeah, East Hardwick is definitely, if somebody has an area, we've
And
done,
I think that
well,
area is
I should say, we've actually done Ward Hill.
Yeah.
So I guess we have done some in East
Okay,
Hardwick as
Ward
well.
Hill.
So we've done,
Great.
Ward Hill was one area.
Nice.
That we had some issues up there.
Yep.
So we did that. Tom put a signpost up for us, I think, so that we could put it up
Great.
there, so. I forgot about that one, but, yeah. And as far as the village, we haven't done the village this year, to my recollection. In past years, we have
Yep.
been able to put them up there some. but-
Great, great.
Yeah, yeah. I think as well, so that'll be done.
Great.
So hopefully before snow flies.
Yeah, well, snow's already been flying a little bit. It's, okay, so maybe I'm not remembering correctly, or maybe this is already taken care of, but didn't we talk about developing an alarm policy?
Yes.
Is that in the works?
It's in the works.
Okay,
And
good.
kind of with some of the things that were going on,
Yeah.
with that homicide and stuff. It's
Yeah.
kind of got
Back burner?
a little bit, but
Yeah, but it's still out there.
It's definitely still out
Okay,
there. Yeah,
cool.
yeah, absolutely. Those keep coming in, so. One thing, for example, I was gonna mention, just to give you an idea or two, is, the day after the homicide, actually, we were dealing with a juvenile problem as well. And just to give you an example of the time-consuming nature of what some of these calls are, the juvenile problem that we were dealing with, we tried, we exhausted all aspects of mental health, Lamont Family Center, DCF, I mean, just a host of agencies, and we ended up having to do a CHINS, which is basically it's an affidavit for a child in need of services. Judge signs and places them in DCF custody.
Which can be done by DCF.
Can be done by DCF.
They can do this process.
How, but they didn't?
They usually.
They refuse.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, it's stuck in our hands. This started at about 9 o'clock that morning. It was about between 5:30 and 6 o'clock that night, before we were finally be able to be done with that call and transfer the juvenile to DCF. So the officer for the day, separate from me, I was doing everything else and working on homicide as well with the state, and that officer was stuck. The day shift officer that day was stuck sitting on that juvenile for the day, the whole shift. I just want to give you an example of, you know, what's the time-consuming nature of some of these calls.
Right.
That need to be perfected a little bit, but it's
Sounds
a
like
little bit beyond us.
Sounds like the interagency work needs to be a little better.
They need a better system,
Agencies.
I think, is what it boils down to. But, because we're not the only ones, a lot of other agencies are experiencing the same thing. And it's very time consuming, especially the juvenile calls. They need to streamline that a little bit.
Yeah, can't be great for the kids either.
No, it's not.
Right.
No, absolutely not.
The last thing they need to do is sit in a police station for 9 hours.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Right.
Yeah.
doesn't seem productive at all, really.
Yeah, it's not. We don't like it.
No, not good for anybody. Well, let's hope that next time is not more difficult than it needs to be. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for Erin? All right, we're gonna move along. We switched item 1 and 2, so Matt, you're on hold. You're gonna have to wait, and we have Linda May Clow, did I say?
Wow.
Has requested to discuss the new water and sewer rates, so,
I actually have, there's a few with the same concern.
Yeah.
It's just that there
Go
was
ahead.
such a hike, I mean, almost 25% for, mine started at, I've been in town for 20 years. We paid a basic approximately $185 for the water sewer.
Yeah.
But as Tom knows, because Tom's been by the house a couple times, we had a pipe that run under the road, and then, so we paid the basic $185, and then all of a sudden, not because of that, the pipe under the road, but all of a sudden, it goes in from December to October now, it's gone up almost $100. And, which is quite a hike. I mean, especially for people that, I have a neighbor that's older than me, that's 90, you know, and I watch her do her dishes, it's in a little pot. And we're careful, everybody's careful. But we're just concerned about such a hike for our town. That's a big increase. And Ellen and Tom Bernardino, Raymond, are you here for the water store? Brenda, are you here for the, okay. So they also, I know Tom has some things to say, and then Raymond will. But it just seems to be, somebody, you're paying almost as much as your taxes. And it's hard. It must be hard for the young people that work hard to pay them. It's hard for the retired or the semi-retired and for the elderly. It just seems to be such a hike.
Yeah, so, so I definitely hear your concern and understand that hikes in fees are difficult, especially when they're fees you have to pay because you need water.
Yeah, no choice.
Yeah. I believe that the current rate structure resulted in, I think, something like 40% or maybe a little more of the folks, accounts in town, their rates went down, right? So, the changes in...
Yeah, that's impossible.
I know.
I've got all the numbers. So,
Tom, go
can I
ahead.
interject?
I think it's, state your name, please.
Tom Halpern. My question is, and let's not even talk about the cost of the water. I want to know why the change was made from 10,000 to 8,000.
Okay.
Because what that did is, I mean, to me, it's a shell game. We went to 8,000, but the price went up per gallon of water.
So, the overage rate, you mean, went up?
No, we went from...
Oh, if you use...
You take your lower rate divided by 8,000, the price per gallon is higher than it was at 10,000.
If you're assuming you use the full allotment, yeah.
So, that, my first question would be, why that change?
Okay, so we had planned a major upgrade to the sewer. Okay, so I don't remember the detail of...
Spit it out. You want a new sewer plant, right?
Yeah, we would like...
It's all about.
We need a new sewer plant.
I don't really want one,
Not
but
about wanting, yeah.
we need quite a bit of work done to our sewer plant. And
Could I be recognized?
Then why is it on here,
so
says
just
metered sewer overage?
Yeah, just...
I have to pay $63 more for overage?
So if you could just let me respond to Tom's question first. So I think that part of the increase is because the sewer project is quite expensive, honestly. And so that's where that comes from.
But that was also passed in the bond during town meeting.
It was.
So that was a part
That's not my question. My question was, why lower the set rate from 10,000 gallons to 8,000 gallons?
Oh, why lower it? Okay, so the base rate, so before we had water meters, everybody paid a flat rate. And when we installed water meters, we said part of the purpose for that was to make the rate structure more equitable. So if you use less, you'd pay less. If you use more, you pay more. But we hadn't moved very far in that direction with our billing. So this was an attempt to try to decrease rates for people who use less. And so by lowering the gallons used in the, included in the base rate, is a step, was a small step in that direction.
Do we have, I mean, it's been 5-6 years now. We don't get a report anymore on water usage. It used to be, I never see it anymore.
A report on what?
On what the water usage is every year and so forth.
Sorry, just to clarify, for you personally or in general for the town?
Just in general, I mean, I can look and see,
Okay.
I know what it is.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. Do we know what an average household in Hardwick uses now?
So that was a part of our, so when we looked,
Okay.
so when, and Casey, I unfortunately do not have the specific percentages in front of me, I apologize. But when we looked at it, there were a significant amount of households who were using less than 8,000 gallons and paying the 10,000 gallon rate. And there were also people who were paying basically at the 10,000 rate, but not really going over. And so when we looked at how much the overage would cost if we lowered the base rate, it ended up feeling like it was about the same. But the sewer, I think when the water and sewer are together, it is that much more. And so the goal was to make it more, was actually really thinking about elderly and thinking about people who use less to support them in paying less. So that's where that originally came from. We can get those numbers. I don't have them in front of me, the exact percentage of how many residents use less than 8,000 and how many use more.
It was about 45% that used less than 8,000.
Okay, so less than half.
That's approximately.
Yep.
Okay. So you have lowered the rate for less than half the people.
Yep.
And you've raised the rate for over half the people. Think about that. You understand why people get upset.
So the rates, and after the sewer bond passed, the combined water and sewer rates were gonna go up this year.
Okay.
If we had done nothing, if we hadn't changed the way the rate was structured at all, they would have gone up for everybody.
Right. But now we're paying 20% more just based on a change because the overage rate is higher.
Based on both changes.
I mean, let's be honest, the overage rate is higher than the fixed rate. So you've lowered it, so you got more people into that overage.
So it's a shift, it's definitely a shift from, so, I mean, you could take it to the either extreme, right? So the one extreme is that everybody just pays a flat rate regardless of how much you use, and that's what we used to have before we had meters. The other extreme would be everybody just pays per usage, there's no base rate, you just pay per gallon. So the goal is to find something in between where there's a base rate that helps cover, there's a predictable amount that we know is gonna cover, you know, a lot of the fixed operating costs. And yet, you know, not make it all just one rate. So, I mean, we could slide it all the way within that continuum, either direction, right? So, I don't know if that helps or not. So we could.
I understand what you're saying, but you have raised rates for more than half the people.
Yes, and what I was saying is we would have raised rates for 100% of the people had we not adjusted the rate
But wouldn't
structure.
that be more equitable? Your letter states we're trying to be equitable, but we're not.
So it depends, I guess when I'm talking about equitable rates, I'm talking about more of a pay per use. So if you use more, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less.
Well,
That's
I mean, I pay for 7,000 or 8,000 gallons that doesn't go to the sewer plant that I have to pay for it. And I know that, that's my own choice. But, you know, I'm paying over $2,000 a year.
Wow.
For water and sewer.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm still under the national average what I use.
Okay.
Just have a real problem with it.
So,
And when I go to shave in the morning, my sink is full of yellow water.
yeah.
I don't drink water. I don't drink water.
You know,
I don't either.
so these are things that are concerning. I don't have little pipes that don't sell pets.
It's pumped up from underneath the sewer plant, what do you expect?
I'm just saying.
Don't fool your eyes.
That these are the things that make it hard to swallow, you know, a 30% increase in sewer, a 15% increase in water. And it's not just this year, it's gone up a little bit every year as, you know, costs go up every year. I get that.
So I would just
But then
add,
we don't see a benefit.
I would just add in terms of, I think it's really difficult to think about the sewer and the water together because they're so different. The sewer project that we have to undertake is a really big project. And so that, in my mind, it's easier to separate the two. That rate had to go up because we took out a bond. Obviously, they're together, you're paying for it, but we really tried with the water rates. I live in East Hardwick, so I pay.
Do you pay for it in Hardwick? Do you have?
I live in East Hardwick, so I pay water rates in East Hardwick.
How can you say?
So what I'm saying is when we looked
Ask
at
you,
the,
I bet all of you, how many pay sewer and water in Hardwick?
I think a lot of people.
You're not in Hardwick.
So,
Erin.
I'm not in Hardwick.
Eric's in Hardwick.
I have to be, I couldn't be on the select board if I wasn't in Hardwick.
But I think, just so I can finish, I think the sewer project, the goal of the sewer project is to make, really, that's a really, really important project to make our sewage system better for everybody. It's going to take time and it's going to take money. And I think when we passed that bond, it was understood that we had to pay forward for that. The water was an effort, as Eric said, to make it so that way the people who'd been paying for years had been paying the $10,000 rate, even though they were only using 8,000 or 5,000 gallons.
Some people use like less than 2,000 gallons of water.
So they've been paying
And
your
they
rate
pay,
for...
so they're essentially subsidizing everyone else.
So I would also just say in terms of the water rates, so in that letter, it's described, but it's maybe not described the best that it could. So the water rates are figured out separately in open meeting during the summer. It's usually the town, the select board, anybody, I believe, from the public is welcome to come into those meetings, make a comment. We change them every year. So it's really, really important to hear all this. We can have this conversation again in the summer. We can figure it out again in the summer. But it really was coming from a place of trying to make it so that way the people who've been paying more for a really long time were paying less. And I understand, I totally understand that hurts. I get it. I work for the school system. I understand. But I just wanted to say that all of these comments really, really do matter. And I think that it's going to be really important for you all to come back or to have us remember this conversation in the summer when we're looking at it again.
What's wrong with having it now?
Oh, we are having it now, and
Yeah,
it is,
we
yeah,
are.
it's good.
We just can't change it right now.
Just
We
like-
can change it, we can look again, we decide our water rates in the summer, in
August.
August.
August and September, yeah.
Just like 3 years ago, they were gonna put a meter in the trailer I got. They never did, but I'm getting charged extra for it. A little old man that lives in there hardly uses water. But the one I can't understand is this sewer meter. My sewer ain't metered. I can't see how you can specify it's metered.
I know the sewer side is not metered, that is correct.
Right, then why they thought that paid $63 for it? Can I show it to you?
You can. You may, yes.
It's within the water.
I mean,
Is it bullshit? Why should I, it's right here, right down there, see? Why should I pay for that? I use that water in the summer to wash my cars
right, so that's your,
and everything.
Yeah.
Why should I pay for sewer?
because we don't meter the sewer, so we meter the water, and everything is based on the water.
Meter the water, but you can't say that's going in the sewer if you're watering plants, washing cars and stuff.
That's true.
That's definition of character.
So,
Telling people they have to pay extra.
so,
I think that should be shut off. I mean, not charge people for that.
well,
Well, what?
we don't have, as far as I know, it's not practical to meter the sewer side. So we have,
It's not practical, well, then you shouldn't be charged for it.
so it costs money to run the sewer plant, so we have to charge people somehow to run it.
Oh, yeah, that's screwing somehow to me.
Does anybody
What's
else?
that new sewer plant, and that's why you're charging for damn money, right?
Right. A lot of the sewer plant stuff we gotta do down here, that's governed by the state of Vermont.
Then they should.
They're telling us what we need to do.
They do pay.
Phosphorus and everything else, we need to lower it, we need to do stuff down there, and that costs more. We're not looking for a new sewer plant, but the sewer plant needs big upgrades in order to keep it online and keep it going. If we can't upgrade it and keep it online and going, then you're gonna be spending $60 million for a new sewer plant.
So the idea is to renovate the one we've got and keep it going for as long as possible.
Make some improvements to it. Those lagoons are full of solids.
And they rip.
No,
They got holes in them.
they've been,
Oh, I know.
They have had,
they have in the past, yes.
they've been repaired
But
several times.
You can't get rid of 2 lagoons full of solids for nothing. So we gotta do, either we just let it go out the river and pay the fines to the EPA, or we address it and take care of it. Like, this is our infrastructure, the stuff in the ground, it's all aged, and we gotta figure out a way to fix it and pay for it. I understand completely your frustration, I do, but this stuff is old, it's old, and we need to upgrade it, and that stuff costs money, so we gotta figure out how we're gonna pay for it.
State,
This,
they charge you for water. I mean, they're the ones that hold their hands up when the water bill comes in, right?
you can barely get the state of Vermont to answer a phone right now.
Yeah, I know.
So,
About his work
we
with
can't
something.
keep pouring things into the state. We have to take on the responsibility for ourselves as a community. The state is not gonna bail us out of anything.
No, just like the swinging bridge thing, down for over a year.
We're working on it. I mean, we can't make stuff fall out of the sky. We can't just make a magical bridge pop in here and it's repaired. Stuff costs money. And we can barely get supplies right now to make the repairs that we need to make. I understand your frustration, I do, but you gotta, it's great that you're here. I appreciate you here voicing your frustration and concern. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Then why don't they go up to the quarries up in Woodbury, get the cable in, they can come down, put a new cable in there and fix it all up probably for $2,000.
So,
Instead of paying $2,000.
so I just wanna,
I just wanted to ask one
Yeah.
simple little question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody asked me, if someone was gone for a month,
yeah,
how would they charge a rate?
if they're gone for a month, then they would presumably use a lot less water during that.
No use, yeah.
Yeah,
I
or
just-
minimal,
Somebody
yeah.
asked me that, so I said I'll ask.
Yeah, can I also jump in there too?
You got
So-
minimum fee, right?
Yep,
But the rates are just, I hope this answers your question, the rates are quarterly. So if you are, say in Florida for 1 quarter, you're not gonna be charged 10,000 gallons, hopefully. Otherwise, we gotta look at some pipes, because you're not using the water rate. So that rate, you're not necessarily gonna be charged the same rate fixed if you're using less water.
You're gonna pay for 8,000 gallons.
you're gonna pay the
You're gonna
base
pay
rate.
for the base rate,
Yeah. Yeah,
but you're not gonna pay so.
And the rates might get to a point where you're only paying for what you use. You know, that might
Yeah.
change. This is an
You see,
annual,
that's what's happening
this is
now.
an annual thing.
yeah.
I mean, you talk about being equitable, the only equitable fair thing is to say, okay, we've got a meter, we're gonna pay for what we use.
But then you guys would be even more upset if we did that.
I would be because I have a pool, and I know, I think I don't. I have one other question. Do we still have 25-30% of the places in town not metered?
It's
I
not,
heard trailers.
Is it still that high?
it's not that high, it's under
There's like
70.
60?
Okay, so it's not down.
Yeah,
But that's the same thing, we're still waiting on meter pits that we ordered.
yeah, Tom's crew was gonna get on it and try to do a bunch more this summer, and they just couldn't get the pits.
Like, we can only get like 2 or 3, but then that's all we can get except for that order. So, yeah.
So, I mean, but, you know, moving to just pay per use would be most equitable.
But if you're over, you're paying for use anyway.
Yep,
It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're over, my bill's not gonna change if it's, you know, it might change because my overage rate might be less.
if we went to everybody just pays per use and there's no base rate,
Yeah.
you would pay and I would pay a lot more.
Not
So what
necessarily.
model did you use to determine?
Rate's gonna be different though.
Because if you had no base rate and you're just charging per gallon,
Yeah.
so we currently have around 40% of the people, or 45% or something, are using less than the base allowance, right?
Yeah.
So if
What
you-
model
so
did you use to determine water usage? For a household?
We looked at past water usage, historical usage. We're not able to model future
You
usage.
didn't go to a national site to see what the average water usage is per person?
through,
Not this
I
time,
mean,
no.
it's easy to do,
Yeah.
you have a computer.
Yep, and so you're thinking of figuring out the national average and
The
then...
national average is actually 80 to 100 gallons per person per day. Most households in Hardwick are certainly bigger than one person. You also, per person a day, 18.5 gallons for a flushing toilet, 11.6 gallons for a shower, a faucet 10.9 gallons. I mean, this is all national. This isn't something that I'm making up. Your town budget in 2021 for water and sewer was $151,879. Sewer transfer was $151,879, which is the same. Proposed for 21-22, $158,746, same for water. That's a differential of $6,867, which is 4.52%. The totals of both those, water and sewer, are 9.04% from 20 to 22, according to your town report.
I'll have to...
I think he's talking
Legal.
about
Specifically
the
about the
water and sewer transfers that get transferred to the general fund, of
Okay.
which in
Yeah,
this
I mean,
next,
it's all in the town.
in the 2022 budget, when we did it, we lowered those. We did
Yeah.
away with the equipment charge, and we lowered the percentage that went, and we planned on reducing that over the next 3 to 5 years to about half of what it was initially.
So this is you're talking about the transfer from water and sewer back to the town, right?
Back to the general fund.
Is that what that's what you're referencing? Yeah.
The average homeowner will pay 24.56 plus quarterly for water and sewer. Roughly $59.60 a quarter, or $238.40 yearly. Somehow the 9.04 doesn't reflect the increase of 24.56%.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you. I'm not able to carry all those numbers in my head all at once, so...
Well, I think all you have to do is just some research. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but somewhere along the line, something has happened to this town. One of two things. You haven't done your homework to actually find out what the national water and sewer average is. It just doesn't make any sense the way that you've determined that people can go on less water usage and be charged more.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you've been saying. It's exactly what he's been saying.
So I just
You
want...
can't drop from 10,000 to 8,000 and expect homeowners to be able to maintain an equilibrium between what they were paying and what they are paying now. Everybody has to pay for something, I understand that. But the town and water and sewer doesn't have to happen the way it's happened.
True.
Research that should have been done was grants or bonds through the state of Vermont. And I understand what the issue is with the state of Vermont. It's no different than going to the DMV. But in order to make it just for everyone through water and sewer usage,
it should be maintained somewhere around the national average. The national average, under this statement that I made in the first place, is $7,200 to $9,000 per person in a 90-day period. That's one person. And these figures are all online. They're not mystical numbers that I just pulled out of my hat.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say that when we're looking at the sewer budgets, the water and sewer budgets, right, we need to run the water system and we need to run the sewer system, and there's a cost to doing that. So we try to get the cost, not a national average, but the cost in Hardwick. And
But
then
you don't have to raise it 24.5% per household in 1 month, in 1 year. Whatever you guys are gonna do to the water and sewer plant isn't gonna happen tomorrow.
no.
So just,
And it should have been over a period of time that was more equitable and reasonable for the average hardworking taxpayer and retirees. You didn't even look at it.
I don't think that's quite fair, because we did try to adjust the rates so that people who use less water actually pay less. And
There's more than these few people in town that for whatever reason would rather have somebody else go in front of you guys.
so I hear your concern. I understand that you're upset that the rates went up and that your bill has gone up.
I'm not upset for myself, I'm
Okay.
upset for everybody in town. What has been created is a bad situation.
Yeah, I
First
just
of all-
want to, excuse me, can I just interrupt for just a second,
No.
please, sir?
First of all,
please.
you should have called a special town meeting prior to even suggesting any rate changes, not just suggesting them, but changing them.
So we
You
changed,
didn't base it on national average, you didn't base it on per person, you didn't base it on anything, but we need money.
that's not fair.
so, yeah, that's
That's
not.
fair.
No, it's not.
Okay,
That's as
so.
fair as
Sorry.
it gets.
So we set, just to clarify, we do actually every year, we set rates and they change every year. So this is
Well,
something
yeah,
that happens every August, and we don't set them according to a national average because we're not paying for some ephemeral national plant. We're paying for a plant in Hardwick. So when we set the rates, we need to set the rates so that they cover the cost of the sewer plant and the water infrastructure in Hardwick.
Then one simple question. There are many towns in the state of Vermont that have a much lower rate than the town of Hardwick.
Okay?
Under these current changes.
All right. I don't know that. but
Vermont, you know what they pay in Springfield, Vermont for town and water,
I do not know.
sewers? They have their own plant. It was built down maybe in the 60s, probably about the same time this one was put in. They pay $56 a year.
So I think,
Is that the whole city of Springfield or that fire district?
That's per household, per,
What water system is it? Do you know what water?
I don't know what the
Yeah.
water system is. It's
Okay.
outside of Springfield going towards 91.
So, okay, so it's probably a small water district maybe?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Okay.
If you're interested in chasing very low water rates, also East Hardwick has very low water rates.
our water
Well, East
system's not
Hardwick,
different.
who lives there?
So, we do have, yeah, a fair number of people live over there.
I would just say the
think-
water, anyway, I think,
It just seems like it's way out of line.
Well,
So
I'll
duly
give you
noted.
an example.
Under the circumstances, a special town meeting or agenda should have been called prior to making those changes, not after making them.
so those,
Because you're not gonna change your mind and nothing's gonna change after you've done it.
Until next year, because we do it every year.
So I'll give you an example on how much water we use per day, okay? Because we got a main water meter down at the pump house.
I understand that.
Yeah,
But
well,
I don't know how many households there are.
I'll tell you in just a second, okay? So on an average day down at the pump house, we go through 165,000 gallons a day.
Yeah.
So that's almost 5 million gallons a month. So you take that, you divide that up by the 603 users we have, that's almost 8,200 gallons per household.
Yeah, but you changed it to even less than that.
Well, about that.
About that.
About that.
Right.
Actually, it's less than that by 250 gallons.
Correct, but we're basing it,
that's true.
I think what we base on was like a 4-person household, because I'm pretty sure we were talking about, it's like 250 gallons for a 4-person per day.
There's a lot of houses in Hardwick that.
We know, there's might be 1, there might be 2 people, but that's what we got to go by. And
I understand that, Tom. What I don't understand is why the town manager or select board didn't call a meeting prior to making the change, so that people like me and these people could have expressed exactly what we're trying to express tonight.
we understand that, but I mean, you're talking maybe like a robocall then.
Oh, yeah.
Is what you want, but we're not set up for that. You know, that's why we posted, I think they posted like on Front Porch Forum and Hardwick Gazette at the post office and stuff like that about all of our meetings.
Very limited areas. Should have, you know, you sent me this piece of paper with my bill. Why didn't you send that to make up an agenda to call a robocall to everybody in town, but with a note in their previous water bill before the rates went up, or before the rates were changed? That doesn't make any sense. I understand what you're saying. $5 million a month for an area this size, given the fact that one of the problems in this town is it doesn't have business. There is no interference by business to bring in capital. And if there was, then those businesses, like Dollar Store or whatever, that were given a sewer and water rate reduction for 5 years, should be paying their fair share or more, so that it'd be less of a burden on the town.
I believe our...
There's not enough business here.
Right, but I believe our industrial parks and stuff like that, in those places, they do pay a higher rate.
Yes, they do. Considerably higher.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If there's more business here, we'd be paying less rate.
Right.
That's why we need a new
That's a
septic system.
no-brainer.
Yeah, and if we had more capacity at our sewer plant, then we could attract more businesses, so that all goes together.
Well,
So we have an agenda to get through beyond this tonight.
I've said what I have to say.
Okay, so,
And it just seems like
I mean,
sometimes you don't get her.
I still didn't get an answer on the sewer. Do I have to pay that $63?
yes.
Unless you can prove to me that I got a meter on my
Thank you.
sewer.
I don't think we have a meter on anybody's sewer.
Right,
I don't think that's practical.
right, then why charge?
Because,
Do I have to get a lawyer to fight this with me?
so I think we need to charge because we need to run the sewer plant. We can't run it for free.
I didn't say you were running it for free, I'm just saying, why charge extra?
Because you have town sewer.
Oh, why the overage, when you go over the base allotment, why are you charged that for both water and for sewer? Is that the question?
No, the question is, how can they prove that you use that much in your sewer?
I don't-
Especially in the summertime,
Yeah.
when you've got all your plants and everything else, you wash your cars,
Yeah.
trucks and everything, and you're charging me to wash my trucks for the sewer. I just can't understand that.
I agree with you, by the way. I have been having the same conversation in my house for a few days about the water sewer, and the bill came in, and the numbers that we use so much water is absolutely beyond me. But nonetheless, just consider it to say, I am well over that 8,000 limit, maybe double, almost double. Kind of pathetic. At any rate, I understand how you feel for sure. I'm not happy about it either. The sticker shock was kind of amazing. Now, I own a building in another community that I rent out, but I pay like the water and the sewer and stuff like that. Trust me to say that what I pay in Hardwick, though the sticker shock was kind of out there, is significantly less than I pay in that other community, without a doubt. And has been consistently, and we're talking hundreds of bucks per bill. So, even though the sticker shock is real for sure, because I live it too, every day, you gotta consider in the bigger picture, what we're gonna get out of it in the long term is exactly what you're asking for. And what we need is more businesses brought here so that we will all benefit from it. But if we don't upgrade that sewer plant, nobody's gonna benefit from it, and we all lose. You and me too. I'm on the same page.
Good, I'll put in an artesian well.
You just can't drink out of it.
Watch it.
You can't put a well in.
My drinking water comes from the well out.
Oh, yeah, the
That's
spring,
only
the
thing I can
spring.
drink.
Yeah.
I put a filter in my water thing,
Yep.
and it's plugged solid within a month. A greasy, grimy shit that comes from underneath that sewer plant.
It's the pipes that have been in the ground since when, 1940?
Yeah. I have the same problem. I have a
the scale on the
water
pipe.
purifier. It clogs. I gotta replace the filters far more often than I would like to. They're waiting on the kitchen floor now.
So,
Does the water plant have a filter?
No,
There's no water plant.
no.
Well,
It's a well.
down here by the well down.
It's a well, yeah. But some towns have water plants where they actually filter water. We could do that, but it would cost more money.
Well,
But
instead of a sewer plant, get a filtering plant.
that's probably more than a sewer plant.
I mean, I go to the water dump, I meet certain people
And
from.
I love that water out there. And this summer, I was sweating because it was just trickling. So, I hear you.
I'm just saying what
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
getting out this shit when I'm in. My truck, it's the wind, let it blow in your face, right?
All right. I'm going to move us to the next item, which is the assessor, Matt Krajewski's here to present 2 errors and omissions requests for Hardwick Electric property, which he presented last time, and we didn't take any action because we were a little taken aback with the increase. But since then, there's been some research, so Matt, could you just fill us in? I know you sent us a summary, but could you just, for the sake of the meeting, just roll through the deal with these 2 properties?
Definitely, and I appreciate having you back here. So the values that I presented last week basically were prompted by the district advisor on this. The one added wrinkle that I have to present to you here tonight is that these parcels have been incorrectly flipped to taxable status, and certainly they are subject to the Hardwick Electric pilot payment program that you have set up. So to mean that they're not taxable, they are not supposed to generate tax bills. So I'm going to kind of let I assume you have both of the errors and omissions requests as well as the memo summary in front of you there. I'm not sure whether or not you've had a chance to look over it. I'll kind of save having to go through it word by word here. But this has kind of turned into a twofold where now what I'm asking from you is to not only change the assessed values, but that we also need to change the status of the parcels from what are currently taxable statuses to exempt statuses. And I think that the questions that you had the last time in terms of the impact to the taxes here, both of these properties should not have generated tax bills to begin with. So that's an error on our end, and I do want to apologize for this. As I've kind of summarized though in the memo, we do have the ability at this point to not only correct the assessed values, even though they should be exempt values, but we do have the ability to correct the exempt status and to not have to incur any sort of educational tax penalty. And I have received confirmation from both Casey O'Hara and Corey Wexler at the state level today that the final education calculation is going to be based on the final 411 submission that I send to the state here. So hopefully we can get this corrected here tonight. Once I send that 411 report, that's how they're going to calculate in the end your education portion of that. So there's no liability on that end. Where there potentially is a small liability here is within the municipal general end of that. I have spoken with Alberta on that to just kind of figure out where we're at with all this, and we're certainly prepared to answer any of your questions here. I'm going to kind of leave the summary at that, and just certainly if you have any questions, then we'll kind of open it up to the two of them.
So I'm actually going to take a second and elaborate just a little bit on what Matt was saying. So by those two categories being changed from tax exempt to taxable, that value ended up being in my grand list value that I used to set the tax rate in July.
When did they change to taxable?
Matt, do you know when that actually happened? Because
It was just for this 1 year, so all of the previous years, as I had gone back over with the district advisor, these parcels have remained exempt, and what the issue was is a coding issue. The state likes these properties to be coded as utility equipment, and when you change that category code in CAMA or in our Assess Pro side of it, it's going to render the parcel to be taxable in the NEMREC portion of that. So they should have remained 96 exempt, and we certainly wouldn't have had this issue, but they were flipped to utility equipment, and that status just changed for this 2021 year.
So, back to you, Alberta. So our grand list was inflated by...
grand list was inflated
by a couple million bucks.
Which thankfully it didn't come out to be as awful as I was afraid it was going to be. It looks like I shorted the tax rate to the amount of $31,855.
Oh.
Yeah, not as bad as, I mean, 16.
I mean, it's a lot of money, but in the scheme of the town budget as a whole...
Yes, it wasn't, believe me, I was relieved when I figured out the final number, but
yeah.
nonetheless, because of the situation, we will be $31,855 short in our tax revenue based on that.
Yep, got it.
So.
Thank you for clarifying and for having those figures, that's really helpful.
But it's sort of pennies on the actual
It is, yes, I mean, what is it, what did we say, I think it's 1 cent
For
generates 18, I think we're almost up to 18,000 now, so it really, it isn't a big change. Thankfully, Matt was able to confirm that the school side is gonna clean itself up, so we don't have to worry about any of that.
That's great.
So it's just our portion, and it really wasn't as bad as I had anticipated, so.
So if everybody just kicks in an extra nickel, we'll be okay.
You should be close.
Not even.
No, I know, that's too much. I mean, that would be over it.
Oh, it would be over,
Then maybe
yeah.
we could just take some off somewhere else.
So, Matt, I just have a quick process question. Can we approve the tax exempt to both parcels and then approve the change separately? Or does it need to be separate for both?
In terms of you entertaining a motion, I'm assuming you could handle those motions as separate. They're the two documents that I've created, though I think it will suffice just to have, if it is your will to approve these, certainly to just have the one signature on each one of the pages. But if you entertained a motion separately, I don't think that would be an issue, if that's your question.
So you can do both things for each parcel.
Right.
So your motion can include both parts of the same thing for each
Because
parcel.
what we're doing is accepting the errors and omissions
Right.
report, which has both the change in value and the change in tax exempt status.
Unless there are other questions, I'd like to make the motion to approve or accept the errors and omissions request for parcel ID 000000682. Both the proposed exempt value of $4,318,600 and the tax exempt parcel, That's probably too much, but that's one motion.
That's good. One motion, second. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make another motion to approve the errors and omissions request, parcel 000000531, to make that parcel tax exempt, and the proposed exempt value be $479,800.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I do have one question, follow-up, while we have Matt and Alberta here, and that is, these values hadn't been updated, I think, since 2006. And is there a process going forward where they're gonna be updated more regularly, or is it haphazard, or what's the schedule?
So,
I can take that. Yeah, I can take another one. So typically, the state is responsible for sending us those utility values. And I will say that I'm not 100% confident that it's been that long since the value's been updated. I would say that there's a pretty good chance it was updated in 16. I could get that information from you when we did our reappraisal. But typically, when we update these, when we're sent a new value from the state, when we enter them into CAMA, I will associate the year of that submission with the new value, and potentially it's a clerical error that somebody just didn't update that year on the CAMA side of it in there. So I can't be sure that the value has been gone all the way back to 2006 there. It's just that what somebody clerically has entered into the system had read 2006.
Got it.
I double checked our pilot payments and it was upped in 2016. So,
Okay,
yeah, so it hadn't been that long.
But 16 was a
our last
townwide
reappraisal.
reappraisal, and this year isn't.
Right.
And yet they're looking at it this year. Is there a pattern?
I believe Matt said that they've had a little extra time on their hands, so they found
Some work?
some work.
Okay.
Is that kind of appropriately what you and I were discussing, Matt?
Yeah, so the district advisor will consolidate through the 411 with me right around this time of year annually. And a lot of times, if there's something that comes to her attention that is incorrect, she'll bring it to our attention. And this was just, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a pattern to this in terms of, this is so many years after our reappraisal. It just came to her attention that she had a document that reflected a different value from what our grand list reflected, certainly, and she felt that it was appropriate to bring that to my attention. I am aware, certainly, that the state has changed their depreciation schedule and how they go about valuing utilities for this year, but I would say just in general, this came to her attention and she brought it to mind, certainly.
Okay. Fair enough, thank you.
Yeah, one small thing, we don't need to discuss tonight, obviously, but we should have a conversation about how you would like to proceed going forward with the Hardwick Electric pilot.
Yeah, we could potentially have a discussion with them on the 9th.
I think you should,
Yep.
yes, so just wanted to throw that out there.
All right.
Can we add, you got that, Casey? To add to the, are we doing the agenda for that?
Sure.
I've already done it, but I've already done the agenda.
For the meeting with HED on the 9th?
Oh.
Is this on there?
No, but it's a follow-up on, you can just do it under just agenda.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Awesome, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Lauren. I do want to apologize again just for this added complexity here. I'm glad we can get through this tonight, and we will certainly do our best to kind of shore up some of these checks in the future here to try to avoid this. I do apologize for this.
Well, I think that, as the way it played out, we got it figured out, so it's okay.
Apology accepted.
Yes, apology accepted was says, all right.
Thank you, have a good evening.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for taking
All right, next, item 3, business manager Casey Rowell to present highway, fire and line items, capital funds, office payroll, draft budgets. Wake up, Sherry. All right, this is the exciting part that you've all been waiting for. Actually, it is.
It's now a bad time to hand out the cookies.
Oh, it's a good time to hand out some. Are you gonna do
I don't have enough for everybody.
Oh, jeez. All right. So which one are we starting on, Casey? If we're following along in our paper?
Highway.
Highway? Should we follow along the paper, or should we,
Yeah, you might want to.
No,
It's probably
you're
gonna be difficult to see.
hard to see?
You already know what your budget says? In case you want to look.
No, that
closer, it's
doesn't
right
help me
here.
at all.
All right, hold on, let me see if I can.
It is nice that it's in color up there. All right, so,
Budget cookies?
wow. I love that they're in the little french fry boat.
Jeez.
Thank you.
A little late.
Okay,
It
so,
is not.
You guys want one?
no thanks.
Tanya.
Cookie?
Oh, no, thank you.
Leaf, we can chuck one over to you. No, okay, budget.
All right.
Okay, all right, so you have it in front of you. I made some comments, on this side about, you know, why things are going up or down. I'll talk a little bit about that. So we have, some contracted increases in salaries based on recent overtime. We're hoping for another mild winter, so we reduced the overtime a little bit. The sewer operator, that is because if our sewer operator does some plowing, we have to
Yeah.
reimburse the fund. So the last couple of years, it really hasn't been anything, so we reduced that way down. It could change if somebody goes out on leave or something and he needs to fill in, but it's been really low, so we put that down.
It's safe to put it down.
Yeah, workers' comp, is based on actual experience that we just had, so, that needed to go up pretty significantly based on what we paid
Yeah.
in fiscal year '21. And then on the flip side, the VLCT passive, we're probably able to put down a little bit based on experience. Let's see, retirement expense is just a percentage set by Beamer, so not municipal retirement. What else is significant here? So we're trying to be optimistic with equipment repair and expense
I
because...
saw that. Why are we being optimistic?
Because we have several newer vehicles. At this point, like our oldest is, well, as far as the big trucks, is like a 2017 Todd's truck. And so we came in at, what, 56,000 in '21? So we're shooting for 70, which is still more than that, but less than the 80 that we have for our current year.
And what's equipment expense? How is that different from equipment repair?
It's really,
Is it
it's like
purchasing?
purchases versus repairs.
Okay.
But the reality is, we just shoot for 70,000 between all the stuff. And the reality,
The tires.
we could, yeah, I mean,
Chains,
tires,
snow blades,
chains,
you name it.
repairs. Yeah,
Oh,
all
so
of
some,
Yeah.
oh,
it really, yeah, I mean, you could almost take repair and just combine it into expense and call it equipment expense. It's always been separated, but
okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
And that way we keep track of each truck.
Right. Internally, we have different codes for each
Yeah.
vehicle.
All right.
So you're gonna notice gravel, 30,000. So our $30,000 increase. So when we get to capital roads, our auditors are very insistent that this is really just a maintenance expense. It shouldn't be a capital expense. So we're gonna try it this year and see. So it's the back road rebuild expense that
Yeah.
you usually see in capital
Yeah.
is gone away. It's usually around 30, 32.
Yeah.
And we've added the 30,000 into the regular highway budget.
Okay, so my only concern there is by putting it in here, then we need to spend it and it wouldn't grow if we didn't spend it.
Well,
for a
that's what,
certain-
that's what I said
I
too,
know,
but the
I know,
auditors are,
But he said then if something happens, if a road washes out, you fix it and you can explain it. It's part of regular maintenance. That's how you
And-
see it, and it's not.
the other thing I started talking to Casey about, our gravel pit's going away.
You mean we're running out of gravel down there? Yeah.
So if we get maybe 2 years more, or 3 if we're lucky, this is a way to start, because...
Easing into buying it?
Well, yeah, because, well, a couple years ago when I informed everybody about it, if we were to go and spend the same amount of gravel that we're doing right now, we'd be up around $90,000 a year. That's just on gravel, for the 7,000 yards that we put down every year.
But because we have our own pit,
Because we have our own pit, we're only spending like 28,000 for the 7,000.
On the crushing, yeah.
Right.
So it would cost 90,000 more or 90,000 total?
It would be 90,000 total for the 7,000 yards that we do
Right.
in our own pit.
Plus the gas to haul it.
That too.
Oh, yeah, right, because it would be a longer haul.
Right.
Hasn't been defined yet,
Well, but
where we'd be hauling it from.
hard to imagine it would be closer. Yeah, so that's a whole other conversation too, like.
Yeah, I mean,
And do
you know,
we
this is
wanna-
an easier way to start easing into it, I guess.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would say there too, though, is that with the gravel going away, yes, it's more expensive to haul in gravel from somewhere else, but you can be picky, and you guys have found like, hey, we like to get stay mat from here, you put it down, it lasts better.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if anybody wants a good example, go up Bridgman Hill.
Yeah, Bridgman Hill late this summer was,
Yeah,
I mean,
right
that
now
was
it's
smoother than most
Blacktop,
paved
yeah.
road.
Yeah, so it's still holding good. I mean, that road is awesome right now, so.
And that makes a pretty big difference.
Yep.
If you can put it down and it stays.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, you're right, that we have to brace ourselves for buying in all our gravel. There's not a chance of continuing out there to the north, is there?
No, because we ain't discussed it yet, but the deer yard going out farther.
Maybe, yeah, we should discuss that at the end as a
Yeah.
new business or old business. Doesn't have to go there, just gravel.
I don't know if there is or not. I know it starts to narrow up. I mean, the area
Yeah.
that we're in now, we cleared off a good
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
But half of it's no good, it's all silt sand.
Oh.
So the gravel's kind of slowly
Yeah.
disappearing.
Okay.
So we got one small strip right now that we're.
Like
back
moving
through.
towards Hardwick Lake? Okay.
any chance of finding a new one? Or have we pretty much plumbed the depths of gravel in Hardwick?
I don't know. Got down by the wells. That's awesome gravel down there.
That is.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
It's on the radar.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Got a dowser.
We got a couple gravel dowser. You have to use a different stick.
I just,
Yeah.
Heavier.
I had a couple of really quick questions, or whoever. I was just wondering, as we have that grant to do the bike signs, does that get included under highway for those expenses, or is that in this year because we got the grant this year?
We already received that money.
Okay.
And I recently spent it. I ordered it.
Oh, okay, great,
So-
great. So that's like done this fiscal year, awesome.
Okay.
And then the streetscape maintenance, what is that, Tom?
That is basically like when we do downtown for like mulch,
Okay,
stuff like that for down around the village.
okay, great.
So a few other things. So based on the 2021 experience with ditch stone and mud season material, we gambled a little bit and lowered those a little bit from the current budget by 2,000. And then brush cutting, even though we're supposed to put it in highway, I won that argument that $5,000 is gonna get us nothing, basically. No company's gonna do anything. I think Tom's talked about this. We need to build up a chunk of money. So you'll see when we get to capital, it's coming out of here, but I'm proposing 20,000 in capital.
Okay.
So you'll see that. And then winter sand, we know what our price is for the next 3 years, so that's why we went down on that, just figuring out what we typically get for yards. So, shows an overall increase of 2.07, keeping in mind that we have that $30,000 we added in gravel that came out of capital. So, if it wasn't for that, it would have been down, but it's just a shift in funds.
Okay, so thank you. I'm wondering, I don't want to see us get too skinny on like ditch stone or the spring.
Well, the ditch stone, we've been doing pretty good with Erin
Okay.
because we're still getting those grants from the
Yeah,
state.
okay, they're still out there.
Yep.
Okay, all right, carry on.
Okay, so, we'll go to fire and line items next.
I just want to quickly say how awesome it's been, Tom, to have the fire department be the place for all the vaccine, all the
Oh, the testing.
The testing, it's
Yeah.
been really, really great, so thanks
Yeah.
for,
Oh, yeah, I should have mentioned that tonight when I was talking about it. They are having a clinic down there Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 7th, from 8 to 2:30. Then the next one will be December.
They're vaccinating?
Yes.
Oh, so not just testing, they're gonna
Not
do
just
the
testing.
vaccination clinic?
Yeah, that's on Tuesday. I don't know whether it's boosters or.
Could be for kids too, because kids just got
Yes.
approved.
Sweet.
Awesome, that's great that
Yeah,
you're.
so November 9th is a vaccine clinic from 8 to 2:30. And then the next one, I believe, is December 7th, same time from 8 to 2:30. Those are both vaccine clinics.
great.
It's great that you've been able to host that down there. It seems like it works
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Good
seriously.
parking.
Yeah.
We don't have to have Facebook.
Tom, is the town donating that space as a public service?
Yep.
Do they pay for it?
No.
No, it's public, it's paid for a public service.
Yeah. All right, back to the budget.
Okay.
Fire department, pretty well flat. Just gonna, based on experience we looked at the labor costs over the last 3 years. It does vary on calls, obviously, but considering that, we're just gonna shift some money from labor to equipment purchases instead. So the overall budget's going down $600 proposed.
Why are we budgeting less for dispatch than the last actual?
Well, we know what our 2022 is.
And it's low, it came in lower?
It came in lower.
Oh, okay.
It went down. So I'm basing
Okay, got it.
23 on actual 22s.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Got it, when we know them. Yeah.
Well, and it's, yes, yeah, okay, so. Questions about fire? Okay. All right, so, couple things to talk about here. So auditing, we already knew the fee was about, well, it's 29,000, so anticipate probably 30,000, and water and sewer pay half, general fund pays half, that's where that comes from. We are going to be looking at putting out an RFP on our audit. I attended a class recently about audit services. There's definitely some recommendations. A lot of towns automatically put it out to bid every 3 to 5 years. We've done with the same auditor for a really long time. It's not to say they aren't doing a good job, but we also, some of them discovered that they saved $10,000 by doing, so like, it's due diligence and it's something we need to do. They did talk about the fact that sometimes you send out the RFPs, you get 1 or 2 responses. We will include our current auditor in the RFP, but it is something that we're gonna do, so, yeah. Fireworks, want to talk about, the reason it's 4,000 is because there is a minimum show of 4,000. Historically, the town has done 3 and then solicited donations from businesses, but because of COVID, we have not asked for donations since 2019. And so this would be the point at which we say, we only want to do 3 and you should solicit donation because the minimum show that we can do is 4,000. So the fireworks company will be looking for that. And so that's something that has to be considered. What else? Lister professional services is the big one. So I got a preliminary estimate of $3,500 a month. That's where the 42,000 comes from. For all-inclusive, all the services. So that's that. And, as I pointed out, I don't have Judavines yet, but I actually have since got recreation and trails. So those are actuals, they're not estimates anymore. Those will be presented later on. The biggest things here, I think you're going to notice, we'll get to the capital, is really bumping up some of these capital, and I kind of want to talk about those when we get to them and explain where that money's coming from. But yes, we're looking at $210,000 more going to capital. We've got some buildings and some road projects that we need to put this money into, so I'll get into that when I talk about each capital fund. And there's a new category here, cybersecurity. It's something that's been on our radar. And our insurer is really getting to the point where they want people looking into that. And so I'm proposing a small amount for us to have like an assessment done, see if we have any weaknesses, obviously ransomware and all these things
It's
that are
real.
happening. It's real.
And can't we spend ARPA money on cybersecurity?
I think so. It's pretty critical
It's
infrastructure.
something about community, yeah, I have to look, I guess.
I would say yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
We should look because that's something that I think would be,
And I know, like, we've had some companies reach out and say, we can do an initial assessment for you, and so I'm putting a little bit in the budget to try to look into that, it's really important.
that's really good.
Insurance deductibles, I tried to just, I decided to take it out. We haven't spent it in a few years, and so like, if it happens, they're $1,000 each time, we're gonna deal with it then.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see here. Equity Committee gave me their request, which was the same as the current year. County Taxes and Rescue Squad, those are estimates, but they're probably fairly close. I haven't heard from the Rescue Squad, but before we finish the budget process, I'll have an actual number from them. The 911 signs I took out for now because at this point, we don't really have anybody spearheading that project, and we kind of talked about, I know Opie and Amanda have been working on some ideas on moving that forward, but yeah, I took it out for now. Because we have 3,000 in the current year to do something with, and started talking about whether we're just gonna do first come, first serve or something, and yeah.
Or you can request a sign and pay for it.
Yeah.
People have mailboxes. First responders usually have computers in their cars that say what house is what number. So I think if people don't have a mailbox and they want a number on their house, they can request to have a number and we will provide them with that for a small fee.
I want a mailbox and a number on
Me
the
too.
mailbox.
Did the state E91 upgrade maybe 10 years ago or so mandate that all houses become numbered?
They are.
They are numbered,
Yeah, they are numbered.
Right.
but they're not physically numbered.
No, they're required to be physically numbered, I thought.
They're
Not that I'm aware.
numbered. They're all numbered and mapped.
Right, I
But as
understand.
far as a sign goes, I mean, you can put a wooden sign on your house, you can put,
Yeah.
there's no
There's no
standard.
consistency.
You don't have to have a sign at all.
The consistency.
But we can provide you with a sign, and if you want it, for a small fee.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we probably talked about this last year, but the tax abatement expenses, that's something we're not expecting this year?
Correct, that was a property that burned down and we had to abate it.
Great.
And it's really a previous year expense, but it was too late to
Okay.
expense it in the prior year. So yes, we don't accept that as
Great,
a
thank you.
one-time situation. So the line item's 24%, with the majority of that being the capital, which we're gonna talk about in a minute.
Got it.
Okay, so any questions about this? All right, and this is our first run through, so we're
Yeah,
gonna get
right.
through.
We'll
all
get to
the
do it
ones
again, and again,
Yeah.
and again.
as we work through it. So I'm gonna move on to capital equipment. This is actually pretty straightforward. This one didn't really change. We basically kind of increased about 10,000 a year. There's one year where we have to jump up to a $15,000 increase between years. But generally it's a $10,000 increase. We've got a nice schedule here of, the trucks being traded every so often so that we can keep our equipment good. It looks like in 2024, we would be due for a loader 2 and greater. The $55,000 would be loan payment, bond payment on those pieces of equipment figured into here. So on a 10-year.
Okay. That's
Casey,
a bummer.
I'm sorry, Casey, what were these? Are these all new? Because it starts with 2022, or are there numbers for what we've been doing the past couple of years?
Because you do, so the balance on 6/20, on the last fiscal year that ended, and then we're working on 2023 budget, but you always put the
Oh, we're doing FY, okay, so,
Yeah.
okay. So this is current year is the first
So at the
line.
end of June 30th, 2021, we had
Yeah.
150,000.
Okay.
Then it's letting you see what we're doing in the current year and what we'll propose in '23.
Okay.
Just sitting there.
So it's 190,000 is the
Okay.
amount for 2023, a $10,000
Okay.
increase over last year.
Got it. And that's basically because we're getting a new F-550, but then not putting money towards the skid steer for another 5 years? Is that the difference?
Well, we generally have to increase because the cost of the equipment goes up, correct?
No, I understand, I guess I was just, like, if they're basically for the, so we put in every 5 years, or it's just, the highway department's obviously really different than, we've got all these bigger items, just so I understand that we're putting in 50 grand every 5 years.
I think the confusion, no, this is what we're spending.
Ah, okay.
And what
got
we're
it.
putting in
Got it.
is this
Got
column,
it.
just that column.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And so the way it works is that you want to make it so that this one never gets below 0.
Right.
Of course, the farther out you get, the more unsure we are about those numbers, but
Well, it's like this year, Eric, well, between the two, between the skid steer and the dump truck, I think we'll have another 40,000 added to the account balance.
because you'll be under.
Right.
Yeah, because we got a decent trade-in for that truck we traded.
Because we don't try to do trade-in value on
Right,
this.
I know. We
Because
looked
our
at
actual.
Worst case
Right.
scenario that we just
Right.
have to buy and the truck wasn't worth anything that we
Right,
traded.
so that's why you're seeing like, the dump truck for 180.
Yeah.
The actual price on that truck
Is about-
is 210,000, something like that, but we get 60,000 in trade-in for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh, so we do allow for some trade-in.
Yes, a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
But not a huge amount.
Right.
But, yeah.
So conversation for another time is, but just to throw it out there, I think it's possible to lease big trucks.
Yes, but you're gonna be paying a lot more.
It is something, like, I know when Sean was still here, we
Yeah.
started talking about it a little bit, and,
Because
yeah.
you could probably talk to Woodbury about that one.
Are they leasing?
They have leased their trucks. So, well, like any lease, instead of paying, 210,000, the interest rate and everything else, you're paying a lot more. But
I guess the only allure that I saw, so I talked to someone at Stowe who was looking into it for Stowe, and the only allure that I saw is that if your lease term is short, then you're flipping them over faster, and maybe you drop some of the maintenance, although I don't know if that's really a strong argument, because it seems like we're
Right.
fixing all the
Right.
trucks regardless of how old they are. Right? I mean, even the new ones sometimes are
It's
down.
definitely something we can research, for sure.
Yeah, so the only way it would make sense is if the overall cost went down.
Any other questions about equipment for this time?
Oh, just that it'd be great if there was some way to not have to bond for it, like we're like working, trying to, we just got to
well,
where.
last time for the grader and loader, the last time we went out, we actually leased those for 10 years.
Oh,
And then it came around that we actually got a cheaper rate on a loan payment. And then they switched the lease to a loan. I think that was like almost like 5 years into it.
huh,
4 years into it, they actually got a cheaper rate.
huh.
Yeah, and it's just that those two pieces of equipment are roughly 500,000.
Right.
The two of them, so that's, we would have to seriously up our equipment fund to be able to.
I know. But we just worked on that on the fire capital, right? So that
Yeah.
next time
But
we're
the thing
hoping
is,
not to
right,
have to bond.
except that, yeah, the thing is there is we have the 2 bonds, and then we've got all the other trucks, we've got like 10 years to work towards before we have, in this case, they're both due to be replaced in 2024. So we have a lot shorter time, obviously, to save up. But, okay.
I just heard Tom say, we don't have to do nothing.
That's not my choice, you know?
No, I know, I'm.
Anyway,
Okay.
yes,
All right, so capital fire, no big changes there, going up like 5,000 a year. We've got the schedule planned out for the 2 bonds that we have. We actually don't have this fire truck yet. The bond did close in March and, but yeah, we're still waiting, right, Tom?
Well, the company don't like me right now, so.
I mean, it's a long process.
still building it?
There's a few choice words I put in my email that probably shouldn't be said publicly.
Uh-oh.
You should let me send those emails.
Oh, I did send it.
All right,
All
so
right, so we have a pretty solid plan here for,
Good.
The
With fire.
fire department, when everything's gonna be replaced, and so questions about that?
So with that, we're setting ourselves up so that we're hoping we're not going to bond for trucks in the
That's
future.
the plan.
Yep.
That's the plan.
But
Beautiful.
To answer your question, the truck is being built right now.
It is being built.
Finally.
We hope. Well, finally.
They're not
Yes,
changing all the
there's actually pictures of it now, so it's supposed to be completed by the 18th. And hopefully in New Hampshire by the end of the month, and then maybe we'll get it by the middle of December.
Where is it built?
Michigan.
Why did they go to New Hampshire and then come back?
They're the dealership that we're dealing with, the sales rep over there, and they'll go out and pick the truck up, and then they'll bring it back to New Hampshire. Then they do all the lettering to it, mounting all the rest of the equipment, the radios and all that stuff to it.
It's a process.
They do that in Michigan.
All right, what are we on to now?
Capital roads.
Capital roads, yep.
So, as we talked about, we actually bumped Center Road out a year because of how things looked in the future. We are bumping up from 185 to 300,000. The back road rebuild expense here has come out. It is still showing we'll be short for that project. We are hoping that we would get 175,000 maybe in state aid for that.
For Center Road?
For Center Road, because it's probably a 700,000 plus job. So that's why I put 525, because we would be optimistic that that's what our portion would be. Of course, as you can see, we are still at a deficit, but this is the best. I mean, our other options is to not pave anything in 24 and 25 to save up. But as you can see, we're jumping up to 300 and then increasing 10,000 a year after that, because it's the only way we're gonna be able to accommodate all these paving projects.
Okay.
And even if we did that, Casey, for 24, 25, it wouldn't, we would still be in a deficit, is what you're saying, probably, with Center Road.
Yeah. So,
What's our deficit? 300. If you didn't pave anything,
right, if we took out, say, 24 and 25, I'm just gonna do this,
well,
that would make you like 230 negative instead of 302, so,
It's not-
you'd have to also take out 23 as well in order to get there. But
yeah. But we did bump up West Church Street from 24 to 23, and 24 is North Main Street and Vermont Ave, Highway Acres, Center Road. And I think you said, Tom, once we get to Highway Acres, like, everything except Center Road has like some newer coat or something like that?
Center Road has somewhat of a newer coat, because I think that's what, 12 years old, 13 years old?
yeah, that was the really disappointing paving job.
Yes.
So, yeah, if we're able to push that out further, but as you can see, we usually do a 5-year schedule. 2027 at this point is to be determined, because we're gonna have to see if we're able to do anything. We might have to skip a little bit to get ourselves back.
So the North Main Street part is the part that isn't part of the 2022 paving,
Correct.
right? So it's from like the
The
bridge
bridge
up.
up, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting pretty rough. And water doesn't seem to make it into the catch basins on that. 'Cause yeah, right. It goes shooting down. Okay, so that's just the
Preliminary draft.
the sad truth about paving, it's gonna cost money. Okay?
Okay. Capital General,
Capital general, where are we? Capital improvements 3-year plan?
yes. Sorry, I call it, yes, general, yes. Okay, so this is where, there's some big changes here, so we're looking at fiscal year 2023. So we jumped up a lot. We jumped up 100,000 over last year. And I'm going to be presenting revenue next time, and but not to spoil the surprise, but this increases to capital is coming from our fund balance, because in our preliminary audit, our fund balance went up again, and we're well beyond what we need to be comfortable. And so this is an opportunity for us to invest in these capital improvements that need it, using some of that. So you'll see that on the revenue side. So Memorial Building has some needs, roof, that sort of thing. Highway garage, 80,000 is what I mean, it's not gonna get us a new highway garage, but if there's grants available, this provides us with match money, which is good. So in this buildings category, that went up from 60 to 148. Public Works increased a little bit. The East Hardwick Bridge had some repairs, so it went up a little bit on that. And the big one in this category is the brush cutting, 20,000 a year. We've got to start building that up in order to be able to hire somebody to do big chunks of that.
And what's the average cost of that? Like, is it, like if we're putting in $20,000 a year, what are we planning on spending every year?
Well, we'll have to let it build up a couple of years before we can do it, I think. Is that correct, Tom? Or
Well, either that or we
20,000?
take and see how far 20,000 will get us next year.
But the 5,000 just wasn't gonna get us anywhere, so it needed to be a bigger chunk of money. So if we could feasibly spend 20 a year, that'd be great, to start getting that done. Bike path, since the state took over the LVRT, I did remove that reserve for right now, because actually there isn't any money. There was, but it was already spent, so. And then, so that's it for Public Works, and then the general government, didn't really make any changes there.
Why, wait a minute. But cemeteries, why are cemeteries going down? Because we're not spending it, or?
Yes, we haven't spent any, and we also have, so we have money in our regular general budget that covers, we give some money to Hardwick, Fairview and the
Main
Hardwick.
Street.
And we have to pay to mow Sanborn, and we still have maybe 2,000 left each year to work with on that, plus what we have in capital, which is almost 20. So I did reduce it by 1,000.
So for a while, we were looking at doing like stone repairs annually. Cleaning, yeah.
The DAR has been cleaning. You know, there've been some
Yeah, we got a group
from
this year
volunteers who've been
up to the Hardwick
cleaning.
Cemetery.
And they've talked some about repair, but I don't know how they're funding it. I don't know if they've been in touch with you about it.
Because we had a group this year that we brought up some stay mat up to the Hardwick Cemetery up on the hill, up on top of Bridgman. And they were actually in there straightening out some of the old stones and stuff.
It's the DAR.
Yeah, so not really putting the ones that are broke, of course, but just trying to stand them all back up and stuff. And so they did a good job.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So, I mean, that, again, if you want to go back up, I can, but that's what I did for now.
Got it.
And then the last okay, so any more questions about this one for now?
I just want to, so Casey, what you're saying in terms of part of a narrative for the increase is because we're not seeing revenues right now, we're seeing a pretty high increase in our line items. But that's going to balance out in the general fund.
When you'll see, and I can flip the revenue really quick here just to give you a little preview. Right here on this line is where I'm proposing a $250,000 fund balance contribution, and it's in here as a revenue. So that's where it's gonna be.
Oh, so you're gonna transfer it and it's gonna look like revenue?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how you would, that's how you show it, is that it's really a fund balance contribution.
So,
But you can only do, sorry,
no, go ahead.
well, I mean, I'm just thinking forward, I'm just looking like that it's good to do once, but you can't rely on being able to do that every year.
Right, but you'll, so there's still, it's still a workout. I'll go over it next time. I just don't want to get into it tonight.
Okay, all right.
Don't want to spoil all the surprise, so.
Oh, okay.
All right, so, and then this one is, excuse me, I got the wrong number. So office and payroll, so.
Hang on. What are we on?
Office and payroll, office expenses.
Got it.
Payroll's at the bottom.
Yep.
Okay, so the biggest increases here, so we have, looking at some salary increases, they're a little bit, excuse me, higher than normal because we reviewed the VLCT salary survey recently and discovered that there's several salaries that are, significantly below average salaries in those categories, so doing a little bit more of an increase than typical 3. That's what we're proposing. Health insurance and insurance plans, we have additional plans. Retirement expense is a percentage of salaries. What else here? Computer software services, I have to increase that because we pay a monthly fee for our, what do you call it? It's caught for our online records.
Yes.
And so that's $160 a month. I had been expensing it just out of town clerk supplies, but that takes a huge amount away from that. It really is, a computer service.
Yeah.
So I needed to put that expense in this category. And we already pay NEMREC about $5,000 a year, so between that's where that increase comes from. Okay, so that's it for, for the top part.
Okay.
And then on the bottom, so with our current, so the lister salary went away because we won't have that, so that's gone there. And then the community development coordinator, this is something you may want to discuss, but I lowered that because our current coordinator is not working as many hours, and so that could change, but ultimately, based on what kind of, and I even ran some numbers, like if this person worked this for X amount, I think we're still good with 26. So, and then the social security is just a percentage, so I did that, so that section's going down about 7%.
I have a couple of quick questions. So the health officer is that like an additional stipend for the town manager? Is that, because it's, that's a separate?
Richard.
No,
It's Richard, okay, great, thank you. And then at some
We need
point.
to identify a new health officer too, because I think Richard wants to retire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
All the people jumping at the door to do this.
Well, they were also talking about, at the state level, they were talking about health officers in general and whether or not that was something that needed to change
Well, they were gonna
across
roll-
the boards.
They were gonna try to roll the health officer into the Department of Fire Safety. So that would be a state.
Because that way
That would be
inspections would
Do you
happen
have
more
any idea where
regularly.
is that discussion gonna happen with the legislature this
Yeah.
session?
So, yeah, Chip
Okay.
said he
I was
wanted to talk
just
to me
talking about it last
That'd be
night on the
great.
radio.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the things John
Yeah.
reported back frequently, is that it can suck a lot of town manager time.
That, and it's not that effective.
Right.
People don't call the, the people who live in apartments who need to be inspected are in a place where they don't necessarily call because that puts them in a bind more than it puts the landlord in a bind. And it's just not really that helpful.
It's a whole nother.
This is a mess. Yeah, it's a mess.
So at some point, we should probably have a conversation about the community development coordinator position and how much we want to be. We've had that before. It doesn't have to be tonight, but we should
I'd
probably
also
talk about
like to, I don't suppose you had in your scanning of average pay, were there other part-time zoning administrators that were being paid what we're paying our zoning administrator?
Zoning administrator, I actually did research that salary and in the survey too, because I kind of checked all of them, and it was in line. It was right in line with the average, like within like an hourly rate and like within 20 cents maybe. It was right there.
Well, yeah.
At least from the ones that were reported in the salary survey.
I think we need to somehow level that out with that community development coordinator, because it doesn't feel fair that a part-time zoning administrator who does a considerable amount of work in similar type of work in some ways is making, $3,000 less.
Are the hours the same then? Are they the same 20 hours each?
Right, but what we budgeted for an hourly rate for the community development coordinator originally, we're not paying that, we're paying less than that.
Right. It's just a thing, that we need to take a look at.
I feel like we get above average.
From Kristen,
She does a good job.
She works really hard.
Yep.
And not to say that the community development position wouldn't be a super hard-working position, but it's not even in the building. We need to take a look at.
No interaction with the public whatsoever.
Right.
Yep.
And Kristen is a whole different thing.
Right.
Yeah, it is a little bit of an odd thing about the folks who are covered in this, like payroll thing. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the whole payroll thing is odd anyway. Like we have these public discussions about payroll and salaries that are not usually public discussions in the private sector. Like they're usually private discussions. And then we have some groups that are represented by unions who have somebody lobbying for them for their, salary increases, and we have others who are not, and we need to do the best we can.
As a member of the planning commission and the downtown commission, I see Kristen, and
doing a lot.
I think we made a mistake when we posted that position in the beginning at that rate without looking at what we were paying other
employees.
people in town.
Other folks that we already have who are not just the zoning administrator, but there are a lot of dedicated folks who work for the town.
Just need to balance it out.
I just have another quick question. I know that, so animal control is in line items, but they're not, is that role not a part of the part-time or elected position? Like is it?
Appointed.
It's appointed, so that's why it's under line items.
But
it just seems kind of.
Because
solid waste district is appointed.
It's not just the animal control figure in line items, it's for the stipends, but it's also for any other expense, like if they have to buy purchase, it's not just salary, so that's why it isn't in there, I believe. It's instead of.
Because we pay, if the dog gets taken to the kennel, right, we pay out of that line.
It's like all encumbered animal control expense.
Because they don't incur that expense.
Right, yeah.
But then if we had, but if that salary remains the same and is consistent over time, but then we have 100% more vet bills than we normally have, then we're suddenly over on the animal control line because of those material items, basically.
Yes, that's correct.
What we need is a zoning administrator that does community development and dog parks.
Don't smart out.
Yeah,
Good
I'll
luck
let you
with that
know, Mr. Kristen, yeah.
You go post that, town manager. Post it. See how that works out for you.
Just trying to,
Uh-huh.
we're getting towards the end, so once you guys all live in here happy.
Little
Got
punchy.
everything?
That's what I had for tonight.
Okay,
That's a lot. Thank
that is a lot, thank you very
And then
much.
we'll cover several more categories next time.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good. All right, sorry, I'm supposed to be driving this thing. All right, next is item 4, select board to discuss forming a commission or task force for Act 164 relating to cannabis, retail cannabis. And this is, I had somebody contact me within the last couple of weeks, asking what the town's gonna do. She was interested in setting up a partnership and maybe, forming a retail store in Hardwick if that's something that we're gonna put to a vote. And I said I didn't really know where we were at, and then, then the state board has just released stuff October 15th or something. It's pretty recent.
So I talked to Johnson, the town administrator in Johnson this morning, and they had a petition that was brought to them to get on the warning at town meeting, and because of COVID, they decided to scrap the petition. They knew it was gonna have enough, so they put it on a warning. So they discussed so I wish Orez was here so she could explain this, but if it's on the article at town meeting, there's no room for discussion for it in terms of like having experts come in and explain things, where all the research would have to be done prior to. So I could be way off on this, but there was 2 differences. If it was on the warning or if it was brought in or.
Like another business?
Like
Yeah,
from the floor.
right.
But you can't bring in other business and vote on it that day. All other business is non-binding.
It's non-binding, right.
So either way, I think we need to decide, and it can't, by allowing people to come in as experts, then the select board is taking a position on it.
Wouldn't the town, if it's somebody who's not a resident, the town would have to, the voters would have to vote to allow them to speak, right? So, I don't know that we would be, anyway.
Right, so either way, we should probably figure out a way to either have it on the warning for it to be discussed, or if there's gonna be a petition, to put it on the warning.
I haven't heard about a petition, has anybody? Have you?
Nobody's reached out to us yet to find out any information on doing one.
I don't know if it's that well known about how the process works. Because what it is you opt in
Right.
to allow it in the town or not.
Right.
So yes or no, but if we have a task force that looks at it for us as we go forward, then we determine based on what they
They can make a recommendation.
figure out and recommend.
And I think that was the difference between the discussion at town meeting.
So we had, when this first came, because this first came up in, what, December,
March.
January of last year? March, it was,
I just looked at the minutes, and it was March.
yeah. And we decided.
No, yeah, it was before town meeting, because we were wondering
Right.
last year that whether to.
But the last, I
It was
the last
tabled
time,
until-
It was
Right.
the task force issue was in
Yeah.
March. It was talking
Oh,
about
the
March.
task force
So,
issue, yeah.
so I did talk to, after that, I talked to Erin and Kristen about it, because we talked about developing a task force then.
Yeah,
Kristen is on, she brought this up to me.
Yep.
Because it's important that if there are changes, if it's an opt-in, there are going to be changes to our zoning bylaws.
Right.
And those changes take time. So it would give the town and the process to be able to change the bylaws, because there's gonna be an impact, no matter what, across the board with the services within the town and businesses and so forth. So it's not something should be taken lightly.
But we kind of need to get on that because it's already November.
Yes.
So, we should,
And this would be, this would open up, if we opted in, so I'll give you a timeline. They would start taking applications in April, and then I think this goes into effect in October next year. So that would give us, if we opt in, it would give us the summer after town meeting to change any zoning bylaws.
Yep. But it would be helpful before town meeting if the task force was able to provide some education
Exactly,
around.
yeah.
so do we have folks who'd be willing to serve on such a task force?
Well, I think that basically, the recommendation from the Healthy Lamoille Valley was, somebody from the schools. I was thinking contacting the town, or the district, to cover the schools and the youth, and then medical services. Talk to Northeast King, or the northern counties. And then medical services, the Hardwick Police, and then maybe Kristen for zoning. But I can, and Healthy Lamoille Valley, I guess they've done this for town, so they would be, Allison Link would be my first start. That, she ran the meeting last week. Kind of to set this up, but I think it's change.
Yeah.
So, and I think the community should be informed.
So,
For sure.
if we were to establish a task force, though, we'd have to say, we'd have to lay out, or it would be good to lay out just which sectors we're looking to cover, like you just did, how many people we want,
And what we're tasking them with.
and what we're tasking them with, yeah.
So
really want from that.
identifying the people, I think, yeah, I know.
And identifying the task that they're working on.
I think what we talked about last year was really wanting to have more education for residents about what it means what does it mean for a business? What does it mean for the PD? What is that? There were just a lot of questions, and the state hadn't really given a lot of guidance at that point.
No.
But it sounds like they're starting to.
And then I also want to add that there's the sales tax and an excess use tax and a 1%, and towns can have an excess use tax, but they would have to tax everything.
Yeah. What's excess use?
So it's I think the city of Woodstock has an excess use tax.
It's
an
a
additional.
local option.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Local option. The excess use tax is like soda, beer, cigarettes. Right now, that's state level, thank you. And then the local option tax is what a town like
The
Woodstock.
town can vote to.
I'm aware.
Yeah, they can add that 1%, but it has to be across the board.
Right.
And so there's really no revenue from, the state is taking all the revenue right now for this.
And it's a big percentage, right? It's like
It's a
15 or
prediction.
20%.
Yeah, 20%.
Yeah. It's
Just
higher
the
than
state
6.
takes all the revenue from tax on alcohol and
Exactly.
tobacco
Right.
and those
Trickles
products.
down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Play
so-
the lottery, it's good, clean fun.
Yeah, so the Healthy Lamoille Valley, they, sent out some surveys recently, and they talked about, limiting, if they're gonna limit, if the state's gonna limit the amount of retail cannabis stores in town or an area, why not limit the amount of places you can buy beer and cigarettes?
Well, don't they
They do.
though? Because you
Right.
have to be a
You have to
state.
get a license, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so they do
Yeah, they only
sort of
get one
limit
in
it.
Hardwick, right?
Well,
well, no, like cigarettes, you can buy cigarettes at any gas station.
Yeah, but liquor, we can only have one.
not liquor, yeah.
Yeah, liquor, but there's also a tax on alcohol, beer.
Oh, taxes,
Beer,
yeah.
wine,
Yeah.
cigarettes, that we do approve
Yeah.
those
The
different.
state sells alcohol, the
The
Hardwick.
state liquor stores,
Right,
right?
they sell it,
Right.
but the stores that,
House it,
yeah, no, the stores pay like cigarettes and beer, they
Oh.
can sell that.
right.
Yeah.
Doug commented that Healthy Lamoille Valley describes itself as anti-substance organization, not just abuse, so this seems like only one side will be
Right.
heard.
And that's a good point, and that's why it's important to have all sides at the table.
Yep.
To be able to be informed and be fair.
I don't think it'd be anything they could set up downtown though. Because you gotta be a certain distance away from the schools, correct?
I don't know what the state is proposing, but
A lot of this is just
Fairly
getting
positive.
fleshed out in
Yeah.
the last couple weeks, and
yeah,
so I haven't read the whole thing that came out a
right.
couple weeks ago.
There's a lot to be, looked into.
Do you need anything for us other than saying, yes, we should have a task force?
And so if we say that, then
To be on the task force?
Well, yeah, we should have a task force, but do we invite members of the community to participate in that task force?
Well, I mean,
They'd
you could
have
do a
open
community-
meetings.
You could do a community forum and invite speakers, but, right now, Doug mentioned that Healthy Lamoille Valley, they're the only people out there speaking about this. So they're taking a position and they're speaking about it. There might be people out there that are speaking about being in favor of it, but they're not holding presentations, they're not,
Who are they?
right? So,
But you have to ask, are those Lamoille Valley presentations biased in and of themselves?
they're coming from the.
It's clearly
I mean,
anti.
everything's biased.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Everything. So, they're just coming at it from the health standpoint, as a substance abuse, or as a substance issue.
Right.
So,
But if,
I don't know the answer, I'm just giving you the information, so.
Yeah, I think we should form a task force, but I feel like we should also have they have to have open meetings and all that stuff so that people can participate
Absolutely.
on it, in every level of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
but maybe,
maybe a couple of public hearings to just discuss.
so I know we're slow in our machinations, but we could look to try to get a proposal set up for next time that would be like a task force would look like, and a list of people that fit these categories, like emergency services, schools, educators, I don't know. Police, health.
Proponents.
Yep, people who are interested in the business.
Yep.
Yep.
So, put a message out there to the public, call my office if you want to be on the task force.
yeah, could we do both at the same time? Could we have more of an understanding of the task force at the same meeting that we also have some people say, yes, I'm interested in being on the task force? So that way we can kind of do
That'd
two
be
in
pretty
one.
fast for us.
Yeah, but it seems like,
I mean, the public needs to get involved here.
Yeah.
They need to,
Yeah.
don't wait until there's a store opening, yeah,
yeah,
to
yeah.
not be happy about
Simple as
it.
that.
At town meeting it is, yeah, yes. or no.
Yeah, well, I think it's as simple as yes or no anyways. I mean, most people that are, our age and stuff, they've got a pretty good idea what stuff is, I think the younger generation does too, but, it's either you want a store like this in your
Yeah.
town or you do not.
Right. So you don't think a lot of process is necessary?
I think everybody's got their own opinions right now.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna change them. You can try.
I think the biggest questions are gonna come from how is it gonna affect our police department? How's it gonna affect schools? And then also economic development. Those are kind of like the big three. And then if we can just have some information about this is what it might look like, I think it just helps people and task force can do that for us, which is great, hopefully. If we have some people.
All right.
And if nothing else, it gives us a body of information to work with as we're looking at the bylaws that are going to have to be changed and stuff like that. I think you're probably right, Tom, but I think we have to assume, we have to work as if you're not.
I like that. We're probably right. You're probably right. We have to pretend you're not. All right. So on that note, we will look for setting up a task force next time, right? Is that what we're saying? All right, so next we're rolling to select board reports. Since I'm leading, I'm gonna barge in with one. I heard from Ken Brown at Vast that GW Tatro, who's got the contract for the LVRT going that way to east, that way's east. Vast told them that they had no objection to GW Tatro working on the Hardwick, East Hardwick section right through the winter, because it's not on their trail. So I don't know if they will, but at least.
That's good news.
Yeah, so that, I mean, possibly.
What's happening with the Yellow Barn?
Yellow Barn is going out to bid any moment. We just don't know what moment that is. We're still waiting.
Right?
Yep, yes, and we're still waiting on EDA. They still haven't signed off on the mortgage that was recorded, that was their mortgage form. So they're doing legal review on their own form, and they haven't finished it.
Wow.
And a couple other, there are a few other outstanding items, but that is one of the, yeah, we need an email from SHPO. I guess they dredged up something from 2 years ago where they wanted SHPO to the State Historic Preservation Office to agree to some stairs inside the barn, something like that, and there was one other thing. Anyway, so hopefully it goes. It could go any day.
We're close.
We think so. All right, those are my reports.
I have a solid waste district report. They just completed a year-long grant that was funded to help them do technical assistance projects for recycling, food scrap management, and other waste management stuff for landlords and tenants. So that on their website now, they have like a thing that you can download, sort of a guide for the management people, the landlords, and then handouts and signs for tenants. And it looks very nice and informational, just saying. You know, because it's confusing sometimes when you're in an apartment how to actually do what you're supposed to do.
It's confusing anyway.
Yeah, it's confusing in the house too.
Other reports? Any new business?
Are we, so I did I was on a webinar conference thing with AARP last week for Better Places. And they have a mini grant that's called Winter Placemaking. It's a $4,000 grant that the Downtown Commission might like to try to go for to add to our budget for holiday lighting, winter lighting, to light the poles, which would require some electrician work, and to do additional lighting in the trees and stuff like that. So I'm willing to try to write that grant. I think I get an extra point on the thing because I actually attended the webinar. There's a have you been to one this year? Did you go to one last year? Blah, 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 check mark. So I talked to Opie about it a little bit. I don't know. I want the blessing. It's due on November 11th, so say yes now or tell me to take a break. But $4,000 is $4,000.
Sounds great.
Free money is free money. Is it free money or is
It's almost never free money.
No money is free.
There's no match. There's no match required.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
$4,000.
There's no
We've
volunteer
got Casey's
representation.
time involved in this, but
Yeah, no 1,000 hours.
No, not really.
About that, yeah, about that recreation.
I've
The
got
1,000 hours.
I've got an electrician coming to do a quote, to look at those.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
We'll see.
Well, we still
Okay.
want to know how much it's going to be because
Because you
the
need-
Downtown Commission would
Yeah.
still like to do it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
But getting an electrician anywhere right now, or a
It's hard to
plumber, or
do.
anybody,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is,
yeah, so I don't know
So
that
you
it would be
get
for this year, but it might be for
But maybe.
next year. It just depends on
Yeah.
how fast things can happen.
Okay.
Cool.
So the select board generally
Do it.
agrees that you should do that?
Because it's for the town, it's not for, I mean, it's for the Downtown Commission, but it's comes to the town.
So, right.
Money that comes to the town
In the future, it may be something that just goes to the downtown commission if that,
as a
in some
separate entity.
future,
Yeah.
but right now, that we're not set up for that.
Yes, right.
So, yeah,
Go ahead and do
I
it.
was gonna say something else, but now I don't know what it was. Oh, we also have community chef potentially as a resource for grant writing, right?
That's pretty much already written.
Oh, okay, Jerry's got it done. All right.
It's also,
It's-
it's like
It's small.
7 days away.
It's
Sure.
not a huge
true.
thing, and it's 7 days away, and we barely even get Jeff to help us with what we need.
He's working on it.
Got
He's
it,
working on something right now.
right, got it, okay.
Okay.
New business or old business?
I have an old business item.
Yep.
That I hope to be really quick, but, a few months ago, or a couple months ago, it was not this meeting, but the Montgomery family wanted to donate a small parcel of land in East Hardwick to the town.
That's right.
And the board, they voted to accept it. I just want to touch base on that. It has not happened yet. He's gonna pay for the deed preparation and all of that stuff.
Wow, that's generous.
But I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of a couple things. One being that it's sort of landlocked. It's, the only access on it is like off the rail trail basically. And so he envisions that people will be able to stop there as a resting place or whatnot. He wants to put like a gazebo and a bench, and he's gonna do all of this, but he wants the town to maintain it. And so I just wanna make sure that you sort of knew what was behind, like after we accept it and take possession of it. We don't currently have an easement with the state, like for a legal access to it. So that might have to be obtained.
Or you could just walk down the trail to
Yeah,
it.
I mean, yeah,
Can I
so,
make a-
right, and there wouldn't be any vehicles anyway, but I mean, I don't know if it's a big deal if people are walking on that end, like to access it.
What kind of liability does that change for us?
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably doesn't.
And so, he wants to put a bench with the Montgomery name on it, which is fine, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that there were sort of conditions in accepting it. He's gonna pay for that stuff, but then if there's any lawn to be mowed or any of that stuff, it's ours to deal with.
Can I make a comment about that piece of
Yeah,
property?
sure.
Well, two different things. I'd be happy to talk to him too, but there's a corner lot, which is also actually a tax assessment thing I need to talk to Matt about. But there's a corner lot that is currently actually under my father's name, but is actually owned by V-Trans, which is where the old railroad station used to be. In East Hardwick, it's right on Stevens Lane, as Stevens Lane meets the railroad. So that Eno is planning on putting a gazebo and a water station and a bunch of other stuff on that property. The property that the Montgomerys own drops off pretty quickly. Like, there's not a whole lot of flat space next to the railroad. And I don't know how far actually the V-Trans, like V-Trans probably owns, I don't know what the
50 feet.
So I don't know how much actually we would be able to do with, because it's not a very big piece. I guess my question is, I wasn't at that meeting, so I
Neither, I missed it
apologize.
too.
Then I wasn't either, so, but, yeah.
My question is, would it be better if it was donated to V-Trans? Because they're basically, like, I think it's not very much, it's a tiny little.
Is it close enough to the village that it could, that the neighborhood organization could take over maintenance of it?
Sure, it is landlocked, as Casey said, and it's landlocked between two, so it's not next to the road on either side. So we would have to drive on the rail trail to access it for anything. Or walk on it, which is okay. So I guess my question is, if it was to be like an additional pocket park of what they're already planning on doing for Eno.
And they're almost across
And they're almost across from each other.
on the trail. They're very close.
Does it benefit, if he's trying to donate it, would it be better to donate it to V-Trans so that way it's like a part of the same?
Except then I don't think he's gonna accomplish what he wants, which is to do the bench and whatever, and I don't know if they would allow him to do that, so.
I was gonna say, if it's in the V-Trans right away and he gives us the land and he builds that, it'd be almost like us over at the town garage where we actually have to lease it and pay the state to have that there.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's been done on it at this point, like, I had the information, like, he sent me the information to have, so Bill could prepare the deed, but Bill hasn't done that yet, because I was like, well.
Should we also
I
pay for a
need to-
survey of that? Like, do we need to survey that?
Can we
before
change our minds?
I guess that's where I'm going with this, is that I just wanted you to be aware of, like, what you're accepting. I mean, you did already vote to accept it, but it's not as cut and dry as it appeared.
It's a really good question from V-Trans, Tom, about that.
Well, if anything's in V-Trans right away, I mean,
Yeah.
even on the railroad, I mean, they have a 50-foot right away right there.
Yeah.
So if
So
it's
he may
in,
not be able to put
if
a
it's in-
gazebo or anything there.
no, because he's gonna have to go through the state.
Well,
Well,
it certainly
if the
wouldn't-
town owns it, then the town would have to go through this.
And then
Process.
we don't want to pay an annual lease,
And
like, why would we
yes.
consider we're not to pay an annual
I would just say
lease?
the flat part of that land is maybe 10 feet from the rail trail, maybe 15. And we'd have to survey it, but that, anyway, maybe we should look at it more.
So.
Just wouldn't be on, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wrong,
No, it's a really good,
that's okay.
it's a really good thought.
I just think if there's gonna be a rest stop over there, we don't necessarily need two right across from each other. I mean, unless they're coordinated, you know, maybe it makes sense to have a bench on one side and a picnic table on the other or something, I don't know.
Well, if the neighborhood organization is going to look after one, would they be willing to look after the other? And given that they're, you know, sort of facing each
Yeah.
other, it would be,
Seems like it should be coordinated.
exactly.
Yep.
But is the other one in the railroad right away too, or no?
Yeah.
The other one.
But it's
yeah.
owned, it's technically owned by V-Trans. They're working on like, trying to work with V-Trans to do something there, I guess.
Because because it's a trailside amenity, so it's kind of, it would be sort of part of the trail, but since they aren't doing trailside amenities, they're only building the trail.
Right.
And they own, I don't think it's right away, I think it's owned, V-Trans owned right there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, clear as mud?
Continue to hold on that.
Yeah, I guess that's
Continue
what
to
I'm
hold,
feeling like we don't, yeah.
We should find out what the scene is with
Maybe, Casey, do you
coordinating.
want to email me his contact info and
You're gonna follow up?
I can try and follow up?
He doesn't have email, he has
Cool.
phone, he's pretty
Okay.
old fashioned, so, and he mails me everything, so yeah.
Okay.
But
I can give him,
phone,
I'm happy to give him a call.
Yeah, really nice guy.
There's some other old business that I think I was looking at you, we said we should talk about later.
Well, that's just the land up in the pit.
Oh,
deer
rear
wintering.
wintering yard,
Yeah.
We'll have to ask the deer to move again.
I know.
Just put a sign up.
Yeah, they'll follow.
No sleeping.
You can't wait.
Is it, so I do wanna know, so this is old business, so there was like
Well, it's new, because we just got it, what, a week ago? So
it's new, so the electric department, when they put in the H11 solar panels, they granted a conservation easement on that property of 11.4 acres, I think, it's strange, they granted it to the people who actually own the solar panels.
Whoa, interesting.
Versus, and they granted the easement of town property, not their property. Right?
Well, so it's deeded to the village and the village becomes the town, so yes, in that sense. I mean, it's
Not
land that
the
they
electric.
control. I mean, it's land that I think previously had been agreed that probably both the select board and the board of commissioners for HED should discuss those types of conveyances. Anyway, so yes, there's that, but then,
is that 11.4, is actually where the solar panels are? No.
no, it's just
Right,
south.
not the new part, I'm talking about
Where it was originally
Yes.
slated is to the south. So if you go down the road to the gravel pit, right when you get to the bottom, instead of turning right, you turn left on
also
the
they go
vast
down
trail.
towards the pen road, or the old pen house.
Yeah, between the vast trail and the Hardwick Lake,
Yeah.
a swath through there, which has some Hardwick trails already on that property that they want closed in the winter, which is okay. But they also said no new trails. And we did have plans to build one new single track trail, which is, yay wide, but that would be prohibited. So my suggestion was, can we just change it, the language there, and just say, get rid of that thing about no new trails, but for some reason, that I'm not, either I don't know or I can't remember, it seems simpler to somebody.
I know where you got the site right now, Eric. I can't see why you can't go there. I'm just, you know, by looking down at it from the distance from the lake, where we have to be back from, or set back, then it also looks like there's either a stream or brook that runs through the middle of it. So we have to be set back from that. So, I mean, that give us a very skinny portion.
So you think even if there's gravel there, it's probably not practical?
I mean, it's hard to look at it that way, but, you know, without going up there and actually taking a walk through and stuff. I mean, if there's any wetlands or any swamp, I mean, we might as well forget it on that side.
So should we go look at that before we commit? Okay.
Something else interesting you just might want to put in the back of your hat for your meeting with Hardwick Electric. They no longer pay a pilot on that gravel pit because they gave it to us to take our gravel out of. So if they're going to basically take it all back over again,
We might
might want to put it back in the pilot.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Although that won't add nearly what the
No.
adjustment just added,
No.
right? Like that was a big bump to get. Okay.
Cool.
So we'll go look at that before deciding. Okay. Wake up.
Sorry.
Anything else? New or old business? So I didn't look this up. I usually just say adjourn, but you say I have to have a entertain a.
I think so.
I should have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
You can't just gavel it?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning? Say
Aye.
So we're done.
Some do it, some don't. I don't know if it's
Have to look it up.
absolutely necessary.
I believe you're right, that you do have to do it.